Recorded live. Welcome to this recording of electronic harassment / organized stalking. Today is December 16th, 2015, and I will be being Nick Spinner on our guy on YouTube. I'm going to be being interviewed by a friend of mine from YouTube and Facebook, Mecca. Take it away, Mecca.
So, as you know, I'm doing this interview. I have about 6 or 7 questions to ask. The first is, what state do you live in?
I'm in California, Northern California.
All right. What do you think of psychiatry?
I think psychiatry is a pseudoscience that is there to basically, serves a couple different purposes. One would be, making massive amounts of money off of no cure, just treating alleged mental disorders with drugs that, in my view, or in scientific view, cause more problems than they help. They really just cover up the problems if they actually do have mental problems. If the person does have mental problems and they take the pills, a lot of times it's just covering up the symptoms and then adding on new side effects, and they end up having to take pills with side effects. And I know that a lot of it came out of the military and Nazi psychiatry, the current psychiatry that we have in this country. And my personal experiences with it have been nightmarish and horrible, and I think, it's right up there with gang stalking, probably worse than gang stalking overall, because how many more people it affects.
Yeah, so that leads me to my next question. What do you think of gang stalking or government harassment?
Well, I think it's a huge problem that doesn't get 1/millionth of the attention it deserves. I think it's extremely prevalent. It's going on all around us. With gang stalking, it's happening to probably a bunch of people who have no idea and will never hear of gang stalking, and will just end up getting put in mental hospitals of their own free will, or just driving you crazy, or suicide. So it's the government wants to drive us pretty much crazy, test whatever they want on us, use us, and they're not really getting much pushback right now, and it's pretty depressing.
So, as you know, I've been talking about how they're covertly drugging me, and I was wondering, what do you think of covertly drugging people with psychiatric drugs, especially when psychiatry admits that it does not know what causes mental disorders, and RT reported psych meds kill 500,000 people annually in Western countries alone?
So what do I think about them covertly drugging you with that? Well, if they are doing that, I don't know. How are they doing that? Well, I don't know. They're damaging, they're there to damage your brain randomly. It's not like they don't even know what real effect it's going to have on you, I guess, just to mess you up, screw you up, so you don't perceive correctly, or, just get you in a bad state of mind, destroy your health and spirit, pretty much.
So with the covert drugging, I've only come across maybe 1 in 30 of the TIs who report some form of covert drugging or poisoning. Basically, with me,
right.
where I go commonly to go eat, Jack in the Box, and there's certain places I go, there's Mexican food restaurants. They drug my food, and I have a dramatic head change, and they know that I get very mad at the thought of being forced to take drugs, or that they want me to take drugs, so I get very angry. And also, probably more hard to believe is that in my room, they have set up some kind of a device that fumigates my room with chemicals, fumes, or gases my room.
Yeah, there was a guy who used to have a show on here. He died a couple years ago. Good friend of mine, sort of, named Chuck, and he said that he was getting gassed like that in his house, I think, and he said he was being covertly drugged when you go to the store. And that was one thing he'd always say, how do they do it? How do they get the drugs into the food that I'm going to get? Or how do they know? That always puzzled him. And then he died, but we think he did the overdose in a mental hospital, but we don't even know.
Yeah, from my experience, there's different groups that work with these people. There's political groups, there's gang members, there's secret societies, there's intelligence agencies, military personnel who are part of the psychological warfare unit, and then there's programs in mental health that help place people who are who they consider have as having mental disorders. It helps place them in jobs. And then there's fusion centers in InfraGard, which is an alliance between the FBI and the private sector. And there's, like half of the Fortune 500 companies are part of InfraGard. So I think that they have people that planted at these restaurants that are drugging the food. And as far as the gassing, I know that my parents are in on it, and they're helping them gang stalk me. So I think my parents just simply took me out to dinner one day, and they came in and they put some kind of device or apparatus in the ventilation system. And somehow it specifically focuses on my room. It must be a pretty complex device.
Yeah, I don't really know how they do that stuff at all. I remember at one point I thought they were drugging my cigarettes, but I don't know how they would have done that. But I think it was just that I was so out of it at the time that, and then I'd smoke a cigarette and I'd be like out of breath and like, not getting enough oxygen. And I just think it was them. But no, I haven't had experience with the gassing of the inside the house or drugging the food, but it happens.
So, moving on to the next question. What do you think of the misuse of government technology and how it's being used on political dissidents and TIs?
Well, of course, it goes beyond that to everybody with the whole NSA and revelation and Snowden, that they're misusing the technology on every single person. But the more severe stuff they do on a more target-based stuff, do I think of it? I think it's insane, evil. It doesn't make sense, and that's part of the reason. Part of what they want to do is they try and make it not make sense. So you keeps you guessing. I think it's sad. I mean, do you want to ask like a different, more targeted question than just what do I think of it? Because I mean, that's pretty open-ended.
Yeah. Well, what kind of people do you think are capable of doing this?
Military is one. Military is a big one. Psychiatry is a big one. Anybody can, prescribe those antipsychotic drugs and stuff, like little kids. I think it's capable of pretty much anything. So military, psychiatry, intelligence agencies like the CIA, NSA, that type of thing. I don't know the level of secret society involvement or how that would work at all. Not being a member, never having been in a secret society, I don't know how they operate, but a lot of TIs say that it's Masons involved, and of course Masons are involved in a lot of the other stuff. Why not this? But I see psychiatry as like a big part. It's like a type of mind that could do this to somebody, like a CIA psychiatrist, like the double thing there. Just like the CIA psychiatrist, I think is like the type of job for CIA. Yeah. And like you said, psychological warfare people. And they could just secret society. I feel like they might use secret society people who are really high up, maybe to understand like the mental, like psycho-spiritual like side of it, because so many TIs, it's sort of abstract. How do I say it? Okay, so a lot of TIs think it's like spiritual, or at least they do when it first starts. They think, oh, I'm getting messages from God, or they know there's a sign from God. So I think a lot of it could be designed maybe with like a lot of the gang stalking scripts and scenarios could have been maybe designed with help from secret society type people to just create like this whole weird environment and content like situation for the TI. But other than that, I don't really know who's doing it. I think a lot of the people actually operating it, I don't know about who's making it happen, but the people actually doing it, taking the orders to do it, I think some of them could be literally mind controlled, like don't really understand or don't even care, don't even think like, oh, this is wrong, or I shouldn't be doing this. Like I'm not even sure that they have the capability of questioning it. You understand? Do you agree? Do you think it could be some people under mind control? Because some of it is like, who would do this in their right mind, unless they were patsies, pretty much.
Oh yeah, some of them are under mind control. When you look at MK Ultra, the guy who's leading it was Sidney Gottlieb, and he referred to himself as the Dark Sorcerer and the Dark Trickster, and they had over 200 sub-projects of MK Ultra. So for people to think that all these sub-projects magically were abandoned is pretty, it's putting a lot of faith in the government.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely continue that going. I don't really agree with a lot of the TIs who say, "Oh, I'm an MK Ultra victim." Like, if they weren't alive in the '70s, getting targeted in the '70s, I wouldn't say that this is MK Ultra. But yeah, it definitely came. A lot of this from MK Ultra, and then they say it became Monarch or whatever. I don't know what it became, but they definitely didn't give up. And that's the whole whitewashing where they say, "Oh, they didn't get any good results." I remember when I first heard about MK Ultra, way before I was a TI, before I ever been in any situation, psychiatry, anything, I had heard of MK Ultra, and they just said, "Oh, that was when they were testing. It was mind control. They were just giving a bunch of black people acid, like they drug tested black people with acid for 77 days in a row." And I was like, "Oh, that's so awful." That was nothing compared to what they. I mean, that's really awful, but that's nothing compared to the full extent of it. So, I mean, if they don't even want to admit what they publicly admit, like if they want to be like, "Oh yeah, like we were only like drugging people with acid," even though they at the same time, releasing the documents showing like, "Oh, hypnotic couriers and all that torture and all that stuff." So yeah, there was a whitewash cover up. They said they burned the documents. I don't know if I believe that. There's a good book about it by Colin Ross that I have somewhere around here. CIA doctors, but yeah, it's ongoing, clearly.
Yeah. And part of the experiments that a lot of people don't know about is they did technological experiments as part of MK Ultra, and they did radiation experiments, and they did hypnosis,
right.
And they also did things with children. They sexually abused children for trauma-based mind control, and that,
I believe it.
That's a very potent form of mind control. If you think about it, with initiations into criminal groups like gangs and the mafia, that's part of what they do. When you get somebody to kill somebody or you jump them in, that's a very traumatic activity, and they're kind of put in a different state of mind, that they're constantly being exploited with symbols and colors and things of this nature. Have you heard of the one headlight guys who drive on the road?
The white headlights?
One headlight. A lot of people drive by me with one headlight. Earlier, about 5 minutes ago, during this interview, somebody drove by me with one headlight. There's a lot of them, and that's part of this.
I feel like I have heard of that. It's some sort of FBI tactic I read about, I think, once. Like they've got some sort of tricked out car. I don't know, I was reading like this FBI surveillance car modification post. It was on I think it was on a racist website, actually. Somehow I was looking up the cars, and then I found on some racist website. I think it was like a white supremacist website. They were saying, "Oh yeah, like with the FBI, like they have all these modifications they put on their cars," and they talked about with the FBI, like they have all these modifications they put on their cars, and they talked about the one headlight thing. I don't remember what the purpose of that is.
For me, it seems like they just want me to know that they're doing it, and they want me to make claims that people won't believe. And that's pretty much my last question: is why do you think people do not believe it?
It's a big question. Okay, they don't believe it because we're not credible enough. Is one reason. If Barack Obama told them about it, maybe they believe it, or if a cop or I don't know, a authority figure in their life or they trust. I think that the people who don't believe it, some of them. Well, actually, I probably mentioned. I might have mentioned this last time. I think you remember listening to the interview last time. I mentioned that since Edward Snowden went public, it's really a lot easier to convince. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a lot easier to convince people that it is going on. We're like absurdly, like sometimes, like I'll just say it straight out, and then they'll just they're just like, "Oh yeah, that's bad." Whereas before Snowden, it was just like, yeah, whatever. They just almost didn't even take you seriously enough to say you're wrong. They just treat you like you're joking. So that was a big improvement. But Snowden aside, why don't people believe it? Because first of all, it's a nightmare to believe. Much more, ignorance is bliss. Remember that scene from The Matrix, where the guy wants to go back and wants to just eat steak and live with the Like you said, it's ignorance is bliss. Why didn't I take the blue pill? Nobody wants to believe this stuff. I don't want to believe this stuff. It's just I don't want to lie to myself. I think that like I don't want to. I'm not like bragging or something, but I think that's a little bit. Maybe that is a little bit more mental or courage or strength than a lot of people have. Just to accept reality.
In many ways, it's exactly what you would expect in a society, not to rag on capitalism, but in a society based on materialism and capitalism, the most ruthless people rise to the top. In business, they say, you make a killing. It's a dog-eat-dog world. So you would expect the most violent, ruthless network of criminals to rise to the top and to collaborate and to use covert experimentation to maintain the military edge over other countries. It's everything that's going on to me is exactly what you would expect to happen if you truly
Yeah, except I'm a little surprised. I don't know if you disagree with me here. I'm a little surprised that they aren't. On the one hand, they're going all out crazy right now, like pretty much openly supporting ISIS so that they can, destabilize the rest of the Middle East. Pretty much openly supporting ISIS. So on the one hand, like they're going all out crazy, but on the other hand, I'm sort of surprised they haven't gone all out crazy, or like just start bombing Iran, or just start staging bigger 9/11 type things. I think that they're taking a pretty big risk right now every day if they don't do something extremely drastic. I feel like this is a point in history right now where a lot of people are in a mental place where they can be awakened, so to speak, to what's going on.
Yeah, I think they're balancing it all out. I think a lot of it has to do with business and banking, and they're trying to push it as far as they can before they do something like that, and they're trying to build confidence in certain investments, and they're trying to. It's sort of like the Great Depression and the stock market crashes. They're trying to time it well and have their investments right before it hits, so they can act like pirates and sail off into the distance with all the loot while everything burns to hell.
Right. Up to Dubai and Cayman Islands. I think Kenny moved to the just company to Dubai, I think, a couple years ago. You think that they're what do you think that they're I realize this is your interview, I was curious. What do you think is their end goal getting stalking for like us? Do you think we're target practice, or do you think that we're examples of what they're really building it for? Like people who are resistant to the system are like, okay, these are like the final TI, like the actual kind of people they want to target, or do you think that we're beta testing for when they just unleash it on everybody, or what are they doing?
I think these are the people who kill two birds with one stone, two or more birds with one stone. You think about, I think Masons are ultimately behind this, and you think about what goes into Masonry. They build structures, and the structures have different purposes. They look good, they hold weight, they're durable, sustainable, secret passageways, artistic value, feng shui, kind of psychological value. So, and they decide what material they're going to use and what material they're going to discard. I think this has to do with Satanism and eugenics, and people who don't see things the way that they want them to are undesirables that they want to get rid of, and political dissonance.
Yeah. Go ahead, I agree.
So I think that the commonalities between the TIs, which a lot of them fail to see, I think, is that they see things a way that the system doesn't want them to see. And a lot of them get stuck on the idea, they're like, well, I'm not a political dissident. I didn't sign a petition. They're watching everybody, and they're noticing their habits, just like the advertising, and they have different ways to track people's thinking. And they say, oh, this person thinks like this, therefore they're a threat to the system. And unless they join a controlled opposition, we're going to have to start messing with their head. And also it's about playing out people as crazy who see things a way that is adverse to what they're doing.
I'm glad you said that, because when I was, like, for years before I was targeted, I was pretty aware of the New World Order, Illuminati, and also like the other information that was popular at the time, and that sort of, for me, like the positive side of it, I was like, oh, the whole universe, you know, is like a holographic, that we get to create our own reality. Like, a perception is pretty crucial to how you experience reality. Like, if you think you're going to get good things in life, you will. And so I remember right before I became a TI, I was starting to have a really positive outlook. Like, right before, like, a week before I became a TI, I was starting to think, like, you know what, we could probably, like, turn this whole system around. And I really had, like, that feeling. And it was, like, a really powerful feeling. And then everything started to get crazy and weird. And I was like, what, who are these people? All of a sudden I'm seeing everywhere. And then I was like, oh, fuck, dude. And then I look at all of the gang stuff. So, yeah, I think you're right. That they target people who have a different way of perceiving the world that they don't like. That if you have a positive belief that you can affect change and the change is not change that they want, yeah, that's the kind of view that they don't like.
And I think the underlying philosophy behind it is eugenics. You ever heard of newgenics?
Newgenics?
Yes, it is where eugenics is the self-direction of mankind with breeding for desirable people and, trying to screen out political dissidents and criminals and people with mental disorders and sexually transmitted diseases. Newgenics is mixing it with like animal DNA and technology and cyborgs and this type of artificial intelligence.
Oh, okay, like transhumanism. Okay.
Yep, and that I think is a part of it as well. These people are very technologically inclined, and they're also heavy into psychiatry and psychology and seances and channeling spirits and new age kind of thinking. And there's a lot of
they're trying to control it. They're trying to control the mind and the body. Develop those technologies.
Yeah.
What did you say? What did you say to introduce that boy? What did you say like a minute ago? But so okay. So what is when I first started messaging you, I'm not sure that you were considering what was happening to you gang stalking at the time. What shifted in your experience where you realized, okay, maybe this is not just, Fremont Hospital. I don't remember. You were basically at Fremont Hospital and decided, I think, and eugenics. But what other than me just messaging you, what made you realize that gang stalking was also part of it?
Well, I think that I was looking into some of the technology and the patents. When I saw the patents, it became crystal clear. I had my suspicions that the government was doing something like that, but I also thought that people might be saying that in order to discredit people who are part of a legit, a real psychological operation. But when I saw the when I saw the patents and I started considering the technology and how they want to test it on people, and then I had certain experiences myself where I thought that, I'd be listening to music or something, and I think that I heard somebody say something to me, and then I started saying, what if I said this in a video? Are people going to think that I'm crazy, and so on and so forth? And I started looking into other people's videos, and I decided that yes, they're probably, that stuff is probably real, and I do think that they probably are trying to use those technologies on me. But because of the layout of my home, I live on like 15 acres. It's probably hard for them to get the technology, to target me the way they want with it. I think that's the main reason why I'm not targeted in that fashion.
Another part of it could be that people were looking into it too much before they really started going hard, like the voice stuff, like what you're saying. Like, I've never really heard of them doing a lot of this stuff to people who were aware of it before. So if that's the case, I'm glad that you were pointed in that direction of research, so that could have helped you. From, you know what I'm saying? Like I've never heard of them target somebody who's like aware of gang stalking. I don't know how. This is one thing I always say. I just don't know how I didn't hear about gang stalking until it happened, because of all the conspiracy research I was into, like heavy research. But this stuff just never pops up. You just see the occasional something about like, oh yeah, cell phone towers can be used to calm down people, or like with the brainwaves, with the frequency they generate to the same vibration as our brains vibrate at. Excuse me. marble melt here. But so congrats. So I'm glad you were looking into it before they were able to go all the way with that.
Yeah, I was into the conspiracy theory stuff too, and I didn't hear about anything either, but it all made sense. It all clicked to me, when it I thought about all because a lot of the things about HARP and stuff like this and chemtrails, I was kind of like, I don't know. But as I see these people for myself, and they stare at me when they drive by, and I can see who they are, everything became so much more real, so much more real to me, And then I've had Masons drive by with Masonic tattoos on their arm, while I was with this one female, and they're driving right next to me, It was so deliberate that they wanted me to see. I've had Masons in like a van with Masonic symbols on it, some kind of like construction company, okay, drive by me. I've had people with Masonic placards and dramatic Masonic placards on their car. It's like basically like custom fitted, custom made cars that are personalized with Masonic emblems and almost like they're advertising it. And I never saw any of that before. I've had people in the military, same thing. They have placards on their car. It's like in your face. And I never saw this stuff before, and I see it frequently at the same time. And sometimes I'd be talking about one group. I talk about, say, a black secret society, the Prince Hall Masons. I see a bunch of shady-looking black people gang stalking me. Next day I talk about the Eastern Star, a bunch of feminist-looking secret society females gang stalking me. It was like, as soon as I talk about it, next time I went out, those people would be gang stalking me.
Prince Hall Masons, isn't that pathetic? Can you imagine wanting to be a part of that?
Yeah, and those guys pretty much go back to the founding of this nation. They're started, pretty early, around the time the nation was founded. I've read a lot. Yes, there's the Irish.
I thought they didn't allow. I thought they didn't even allow blacks to be Prince Hall. I thought they didn't make that till later. But really, the beginning of the nation.
Yep, and it was formed with the blacks in secret societies. Blacks in the military. The Irish secret societies brought them in, and then they made them official. And there was a lot of protests from other secret societies. This might even be where they got the term green N-word for Irish people. It might even be where that came from. The term green N-word for Irish people. It might even be where that came from.
I've never heard that one.
And this secret go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say this secret society stuff goes way back, and with Masons, they seem to have gathered different secret societies, what they call clandestine or closed societies, from all over the world, from Asia and Africa, and the early black Masons, the early black secret societies in America, the leaders of their societies were African princes and well-established African Americans, and the Africans in their secret societies were the higher-ups. They always tried to make it so that people who had some sort of a legitimate claim to royalty or to being a ruler were the ones in charge of the group.
Yeah, secret societies. It's interesting. There's a lodge literally like down the street from my house, around the corner. I used to go up there they hold the fireman's pancake breakfast right there, right across from City Hall. You go in the Masonic Lodge to get the pancakes, and I'd sneak upstairs to go check out all the books and the paintings. And they've got big George Washington in Masonic clothing, portraits, and all these old fake Knights Templar swords. I'm sure they're fake. I think there's some other secret societies that were you get initiated to a certain level. So it's all this antique secret society memorabilia there we go look at and do other things with, like leave the building with what? No, we never did that. I never did that.
What's crazy? What's crazy is that my mom. Sometimes every once in a long time I talk about secret societies in my family, and I think it was during Thanksgiving. I was talking with my mom and my brother, and it got into a heated argument. And it turns out that I'm like a distant relative of J.P. Morgan, and
Oh wow.
yeah, and I'm a descendant of some of the Knights Templars. William Penn, from the guy whose name Pennsylvania is named after. My family were Masons during that time, and they had a lot of money from selling horses, and they started giving a lot of settlers land, and they pretty much gave up all their money just giving out land. And also, my family was some of the first people on the Mayflower, and I thought that was interesting because Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He claims to be related to Captain Jones of the Mayflower. So my family actually came on the same boat as his.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting how he's a conspiracy theorist and I'm a conspiracy theorist too. And we both don't like being told what to do by these secret societies, which Masonry comes from England. It comes from the UK. So it's like in our blood to want to resist these people.
That's great. Yeah, I don't know that I have any famous Masons or American people, but I have Leif Erikson and his father Eric the Red Viking people. Leif Erikson, we had Leif Erikson Day here. Apparently, he came to America way before Columbus did, which is pretty cool.
I wasn't too big of a fan of being related to J.P. Morgan. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll get a drive to make some money, get some riches going, some dormant riches DNA get activated, and all of a sudden you're gonna go down to Wells Fargo, take that branch over. So what's it like being you're Muslim, right?
Actually, I was considering converting to Islam for a while because I'm a Christian, and I felt like I wanted to be able to go to war with these people with a clear conscience. And Christianity and Islam are very similar, and I felt like these are Satanists who are going to the extreme. So I need to answer them by going to the extreme. So, I was starting to go down the path of radical Islam, and then
Oh, Jesus. That's not a fun path. I don't think that has a fun ending, that path.
Just, I was willing to stop at nothing to deal with these people, and I wanted to just give the New World Order, teach the New World Order a lesson that they would never forget.
That's a trap a lot of people fall into, I think, is, they're so hardcore Satanists, they're so hardcore this or that. I'm going to be the hardcore other end of the spectrum, but, it's sort of like the dog up the farthest end of the spectrum, you're wrong on both sides, It's like they get off, they get power from that. I think just like a lot like Myron May or Aaron Alexis, the two guys in 2014. I guess the answer is I just go out and fucking shoot people. Yeah, that's not. I don't think that's the answer. But I didn't know you were only considering Islam. So you're still Christian? I mean, just because you don't want to be a radical Muslim doesn't mean you can't be a Muslim.
Well, it's a very interesting path I've taken in my life. When I was younger, because my dad is from Nigeria, where Boko Haram and a lot of terrorists, and one of the biggest wars in Africa was the Nigerian Civil War between Muslims and my dad's tribe, which is the Christians. So I grew up, and my dad came here during the Nigerian Civil War, with Muslims trying to kill him. So I grew up hating Muslims. Especially the ones from northern Nigeria. And this was way before Boko Haram. And I ironically wanted America to feel the same way about Islam as I did. And I wanted them to, to take more action against Islam. And then, as soon as I start getting over it, 9/11 happens. Yeah. Pretty much what happened. And then after all these years, I start considering being a Muslim myself, and I feel more like them than I do, like the people who are in charge of our country.
Yeah. When a few years ago, I still have a couple of English translations of the Quran around that I've been meaning to get through, but I was thinking sort of along the same lines of, if they're so against, I looked at it like, okay, so if you don't support Islam right now, if you don't support Muslims right now, that's pretty much like not supporting Jews during the Holocaust or something like that. If you got to support the oppressed people, the whole quote from the Holocaust, when they came for the communists, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist, wherever it was, and when it came to the Jews, I didn't say anything. I wasn't a Jew when they came for me. nobody spoke up for me because there was no one left or whatever the exact quote is. I forget. I just felt like you really have to support Muslims right now because they're going down that road. I thought like we were one terrorist attack away, or it could be a week away from death camps for Muslims or whatever the first group of people they made the culprit. Luckily, it hasn't escalated that quickly yet.
Yeah, it's pretty much how it is. I when the New World Order set its sights on Muslims, it begged the question, what are they up to? And to me, it gave them a lot more credibility as to what religion is the true religion. When the bad guys hate these guys the most, it's kind of promoting their religion to
people. Is it that they hate Islam the most, or that they think that they can get Americans to hate Islam the easiest, so that they can use them as a group to target, so that they can use the same laws that they target those Muslims with to turn them around and target every person? Are they just a good scapegoat?
I think that they hate Muslims and Christians, but they hate Muslims a little bit more, because if you look, I think that part of the New World Order is Zionism, the Rothschilds,
right,
the Warburgs, etc. And these people really hate Muslims. You look at Palestine. I just read something that 40% of the children detained by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are sexually assaulted.
I saw that. That's awful.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're all tortured. Yeah, unbelievable. Awful.
And the Mossad assassinates Muslims in countries all over the world covertly, especially in Africa. Right. So I do think that some of the higher ups hate Muslims the most, but I also think they hate Christians because the Bible makes the Jews look bad in many cases. There's this one part where the Jews say, "Let his blood be on us," paraphrasing, referring to Jesus. And, that that makes them look very, very bad, and I know that they don't like that. And so I think that they want to destroy religion.
Yeah, clearly they don't like Christians, because look at ISIS. Like, ISIS is going crazy on Christians. They do not like Christians, and Obama is not letting, or I'm pretty sure only one, maybe it's zero, maybe one of the refugees he's let in Christian. But Christians are getting, Christians have lived in Syria for, 1,800 years. Just having their entire families massacred. It's so awful.
Yeah. And also...
So, yeah, they hate Christians for sure. I guess I don't know if do they hate Christians the most? Do they hate Muslims the most? Do they just switch seats, the musical chairs? Is it Muslim and Christian time this time, and 100 years from now it'll be back to the Jews? Who knows?
Well, I think you got to go by Pike. Pike in 1871 wrote letters to Giuseppe Mazzini where he said he was going to turn political Zionism against the Islamic world and cause their mutual destruction. And
cause the Third World War, yeah. I've read all those. Those are amazing letters if they're real.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that they are or that they aren't. I remember I posted them on... I was noticing how... Do you want to finish up what you're saying before I go on about the Third World War? I'm sure I'm interrupting, about to go on a rant.
I'm just going to say that also they wanted to pit atheism against Christianity and just get them mutually destroyed as well.
To bring in the pure doctrine of the light of Lucifer, or whatever the fuck it says.
Yep, I do think that's what's going on, because Pike has statues in very many lodges, and one of the most powerful groups in the Masonry is the Scottish Rite. And Pike wasn't just a famous figure in the Scottish Rite. He pretty much founded it and wrote most of the rituals in the Scottish Rite.
Yeah, they say that he might have written the rituals for the Ku Klux Klan too. I'm pretty sure he's got a statue in public in Washington D.C. Pretty disgusting. There is debate though about whether those three World War letters. I mean, it's such a... You know what those letters remind me of? They remind me of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion document, where it's it's almost like too cartoonish. It's almost like the Illuminati put that out there as disinformation, the truth mixed in with these letters weren't real or something. They tell you plan, but then they source it to the wrong thing. It almost seems like that to me. It's like the Elders of Zion, where they describe I don't know if you've read the Elders of Zion, where which they've used to stir up like anti-Jewish stuff here and there. But it's like, pretty much just the Illuminati plan, or the communist/Illuminati plan, and then they just make it look Jewish to stir up anti-Semitism at the time. Not that there aren't Jews at the top level, of course there are. We know that they really believe in a Jew God or Lucifer. I don't even know what they believe in, but it's so big. The whole thing is so big, it's hard to really nail down exactly what their aim is.
Well, the Jews are some of the main people who came up with communism. Marx and Engels were both descendants of Jews. They're both atheistic people of Jewish descent, and some of the first communist committees were like 50% Jewish. They were disproportionately Jewish. So there is a lot of truth in. I think with the protocols, one of two things happened. One, they're real. Two, they were faked by somebody who knows what the plan is and wanted to make a document that was simple, that people would understand it, instead of having to explain a huge story.
Yeah, that's something along those lines is what I figured on there. I mean, why would they have such a short? I mean, what would be the point of them internally having that document? It's such a joke. It's like only how long is it? It's only a few pages, isn't it? But yeah. So if it's real, I think they put it out on purpose. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me stop you. Okay. Well, any more questions, or should we wrap it up?
Probably wrap it up. I got 41 minutes or so far.
All right. Well, I'm gonna end the recording, and then if you come up with any more questions you want to ask, just send me a message anytime.
All right. Thanks for
anything you want to talk about or record?
Thanks for the interview.
You're welcome. Signing off. This has been Electronic Harassment Organized Stalking with. Do you have a YouTube channel you want to put out?
James Jackson.
James Jackson on YouTube. Thanks for listening.